안녕! Dollightful에 어서오세요! 오늘 Monster High repainting을 matte varnish으로 할 거예요. Today I'll be customizing Rochelle Goyle from the Haunted line using matte varnish. For some reason or another, her face has been smeared. I vaguely recall doing this myself a long time ago, but why I left her like this, I don't know. At any rate, she deserves a new face. After tying her hair back, I'm going to finish the job of removing her face using acetone nail polish remover and a couple of Q-tips. Using scooping and spinning motions helps lift the factory paint. Once she's wiped clean, I rinse her face with warm soapy water before continuing. Now the main point of this doll is to experiment with alternate methods of sealant. Mr. Superclear is the best and most well-known sealant, and for good reasons. But is there a viable alternative? Let's find out. I'll be using Duraclear matte varnish sealant. Give it a good shake and squeeze a few drops out onto a palette. Add a couple drops of water. I found a good ratio to be around 60% water to varnish, so a little more than half. Next, I'm going to take a makeup sponge and dab the solution all over the face, making sure I reach inside the lips and corners of the eyes. I'm going to apply 2 coats and see how that does. It dries in about 3 minutes, so there's not much wait time, which is nice. Time to begin the face up. Taking Mungyo soft pastels, I blush the cheeks and eyeshadow areas. If the pastel is too hard, scratch some pigment off before picking it up with your brush. I'm rubbing the pastels in with my cotton glove, then applying more and repeating the process. I can already tell the pastels aren't sticking so well, so they need a little help. Moving on to the watercolor pencils. Right off the bat, I noticed a slippery feeling like I was drawing on plastic. If you've used Mr. Superclear before, you're used to the plastic gaining a bit of tooth from the sealant, which helps materials stick. The varnish doesn't provide that, so I'm relying entirely on my most pigmented of colored pencils. You know how some colors seem to draw more easily than others? If you've worked with one set of pencils for long enough, you'll recognize what I'm talking about, but basically the materials to make certain colors flow better than others. In this situation, I found that my dark blue color was one of the few that actually made a mark. I'm doing my best with the pencils, but you've got to admit they aren't really working now, are they? I'm going to add a few more layers of sealant in hopes of building up some more color and lines. Although I'm applying it quickly and efficiently, the sponge is picking up some of the color. Let's see if we can build more color now. While I'm satisfied with the pastels, the watercolor pencils continue to disappoint. To help the color slide on, I'm going to try wetting the tips. It's working a little better. It felt a little tricky at first, but I'm warming up to it. Eventually, I can't build up color anymore, so that means it's time for more sealant. I've decided painting the majority of the face in acrylics is the best option from here on out. Now, this really depends on your abilities and what medium you're most comfortable with, but I personally prefer the pencils with a touch of acrylic at the end to brighten up the colors. I've never done a full acrylic face before, but I know other artists who work only in acrylics. That said, the paint is going on much better than the pencils and pastels because it doesn't depend on a sealant's texture to stay on the plastic. I know for a fact Duraclear matte varnish works well with acrylics because I've used it to coat figurines which I've painted in the past, like my unicornos, and they're holding up very well. Here's hoping it will do just as well if we use acrylics on a fashion doll's vinyl face. Also, I think we can all agree that these are the worst eyebrows in Dollightful history, which is saying something. They're so bad I had to take them back off with acetone and try again. Sometimes you just have to wipe it clean and start over. From this point on, I'm using the occasional pastel to keep the soft feeling of the face-up intact, and delicately apply acrylics the same way I would draw with pencils. I'm still trying to keep my lines thin and delicate, and add those fancy white highlight lines, but I think you can see I'm a little clunkier with the paints than the pencils. Okay, I think she's done. Let's apply the final coats of sealant and hope the color stays put. I'm going to paint it on with a soft brush this time because I have my suspicions that the pressure from applying it with the sponge was aiding in lifting the color, even though I was trying to be delicate. So on goes the sealant/water mixture once more, and I soak up the excess with a dry brush before tipping her face down. I'm keeping her looking down and rotating her a little bit so that gravity does all the hard work of evenly spreading the wet varnish around. And she's done. Even though I basically made her for experimentation purposes, I still think she's happy with her new face. Better than one smudged eye at any rate. Before I wrap this up with a couple of photos, let's evaluate and compare the matte varnish to Mr. Superclear. Which one would you choose? What are your thoughts on the varnish method of sealing? It seems there is a long list of both pros and cons for each sealant. After this experience, I still prefer MSC. Of course, I have more experience with MSC, so I suppose if I use the matte varnish just as much, I would learn and adapt to its qualities and adjust my methods accordingly. If you are just as comfortable using acrylic paint, then the varnish is a totally viable option. And of course, if you can't find MSC where you live, or have a medical condition where you need to use all non-toxic materials, it's basically your only alternative. If layered too many times, it seems the matte varnish inevitably becomes a little shiny, no matter how much I cut it with water, so there's that to consider. It actually looks kind of dewy, so if that's a skin type you like, then there you go. In conclusion, and this is just my opinion remember, matte varnish can be a viable alternative and seals well, however it limits you to using acrylic paint. Use what's best for you. Here's a few more photos of Rochelle's new face. The Haunted line was my all-time favorite line of dolls from Monster High. I just love all the flowy clothing and the pastel colors. It's totally my taste. If you have further questions about materials related to doll customizing, please watch my very thorough video where I cover all the usual questions. Give this video a big thumbs up for Rochelle's Mr. Superclear free face, and subscribe for more customizing videos. 다음에 볼 거예요. Stay artsy! 안녕!